The Roloff family saga was once a heartwarming story of overcoming adversity, but it has now spiraled into a public spectacle of greed, betrayal, and broken promises. The verdict is in, but not from any courtroom you'll find on a map. No, this judgment has been handed down in the court of public opinion, where millions of viewers have become the judge, jury, and executioner. At the center of it all is Matt Roloff and the sale of the family farm, a decision that has fractured his family and exposed a side of him that fans never thought they'd see. But what if the story we've been shown is a carefully crafted lie? What if the evidence, hidden in plain sight for years, proves that this was never about legacy, but about something far more sinister? We're about to blow the lid off this entire controversy using insider reports and exclusive theories that you won't hear anywhere else. Before we dive into the evidence and expose the shocking truth behind the Roloff farm feud, do us a favor and hit that like button. If you're as invested in uncovering the real story as we are, make sure you subscribe to LPBW Update and ring that notification bell. You are not going to want to miss a single moment of what we have for you today as we piece together the puzzle that TLC and Matt Roloff never wanted you to solve. Part 1, the indictment. The judgment has been cast. The Roloff family drama, once a private affair, shielded by the carefully constructed narrative of a reality television show, is now anything but. It has spilled out from the confines of television screens and into the wild, untamed wilderness of the internet. Millions of people who for years invited this family into their homes every week are now weighing in, and their collective voice is a roar that cannot be ignored. The court of public opinion is officially in session, and the primary defendant, Matt Roloff, is facing a trial by fire. The charges are numerous and severe: greed, manipulation, gaslighting, and the ultimate betrayal of his own flesh and blood. This isn't just about a farm, it's about the dissolution of a family's legacy, broadcast for the world to see and dissect. Every social media post, every comment, every single online forum has become a deliberation room where fans, armed with years of viewership and an encyclopedic knowledge of the family's history, are passing sentences. The days of Matt controlling the narrative are over. The power has shifted, and the public, the very audience that built his empire, is now holding him accountable for its collapse. This transformation from a family show into a public trial didn't happen overnight. It was a slow burn, a gradual erosion of trust that culminated in the explosive announcement about the farm sale. For years, viewers watched Matt Roloff portray himself as the patriarch, the dreamer, the man who built a magical world for his children. He spoke endlessly of legacy, of passing the farm down through generations. It was the central promise of the entire series, the emotional bedrock upon which the Roloff brand was built. And then, with a single real estate listing, that promise was shattered. The public felt duped. They had invested not just their time, but their emotions into this family story. They had cheered for the children, sympathized with Amy's struggles, and admired Matt's ambition. To see that ambition curdle into what they perceived as pure avarice was more than just a plot twist. It felt like a personal betrayal. The online backlash was instantaneous and brutal. Matt's Instagram and Facebook pages, once filled with praise for his projects, became a digital pillory. Thousands of comments flooded his posts, accusing him of choosing money and his girlfriend, Karen Chandler, over his own sons, Zach and Jeremy. Phrases like, "You broke your promise," "How could you do this to your family?" and "Amy was right all along" became the dominant refrain. It was a deluge of condemnation. Fans felt they had a right to be angry. They had been loyal customers of the Roloff brand, buying into the wholesome family image that was sold to them for 2 decades. Now they were demanding a refund, not in dollars, but in accountability. This wasn't just a few disgruntled viewers, it was a seismic shift in the fan base's perception. The patriarch had fallen from grace, and the people who once adored him were now leading the charge against him. The depth of the public's anger can be seen in the sheer volume and specificity of their criticisms. They weren't just making broad accusations, they were citing specific episodes, quoting Matt's own words back to him, and pointing out the glaring hypocrisy of his actions. They remembered every time he talked about Zach taking over the farm one day. They remembered every speech he gave about the importance of family and legacy. This wasn't a case of a fickle audience turning on a celebrity. This was a jury that had meticulously reviewed the evidence presented to them over 16 years and found the defendant's current story to be a complete and utter fabrication. The judgment wasn't just emotional, it was rooted in a deep-seated belief that they had been lied to. The wholesome family man they had come to know was, in their eyes, a mask for a calculating businessman who saw his children not as heirs, but as obstacles. And in this new courtroom, their collective judgment was the only one that mattered. The gavel had fallen, and for Matt Roloff, the public verdict was a resounding and undeniable guilty. Now, let's step up to the witness stand. In a traditional courtroom, witnesses are sworn in to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. In the court of public opinion, the witness stand is a sprawling, chaotic, and incredibly powerful platform. The internet, specifically Reddit threads and fan forums. This is where the story truly comes alive, where the official narrative presented by TLC and the Roloffs is torn apart and reassembled into something that feels much closer to the truth. These online spaces have become a repository of collective memory and a hub for investigative fandom. Here, viewers aren't passive consumers. They are active participants, detectives, and key witnesses sharing testimonies that reveal a shocking level of insider knowledge and astute observation. They are the ones who remember the little details, the offhand comments, the subtle glances that the show's editors might have missed or intentionally ignored. One of the most powerful forms of testimony comes from Reddit in communities like our Little People, Big World. These threads are a goldmine of information, a living archive of the Roloff family's televised life. Users will post a clip from an episode that aired a decade ago and ask, "Remember when Matt said this?" The comments section will then explode with hundreds of responses, each adding another layer of context, another piece of the puzzle. It's a crowdsourced investigation, and the conclusions it reaches are often far more damning than anything the show itself would dare to air. These fans are the ultimate witnesses because they have no agenda other than uncovering what they believe to be the truth. They aren't bound by TLC's production contracts or the family's desire to maintain a certain public image. They can speak freely, and they do. It's on these forums that we first begin to hear the insider reports. These are the whispers, the rumors, the "I know someone who knows someone" stories that add a tantalizing layer of intrigue to the public drama. For instance, a persistent theory that has gained immense traction is that Matt never seriously intended to sell the farm to his sons. According to these exclusive theories, the price he quoted them, a price Zach publicly called insultingly high, was a strategic move. The theory posits that Matt knew his sons couldn't afford the full market value he was demanding, and that he intentionally set the bar impossibly high to create a justification for selling it to an outsider. It was, as one Redditor put it, a classic case of malicious compliance. He could go to the public and say, "Hey, I gave them a chance, they just couldn't make it work," all while knowing the offer was designed to be rejected. This testimony rings true for many fans who have watched Matt's business dealings over the years. They've seen his shrewd, often cutthroat approach to negotiations, and this theory fits his established pattern of behavior perfectly. Another piece of powerful testimony comes from so-called former crew members who occasionally surface on these forums. These anonymous accounts must be taken with a grain of salt, of course, but their revelations often confirm viewers' long-held suspicions. One such report claimed that the tension between Matt and Amy during the divorce was far worse than what was portrayed on screen. This insider alleged that Matt would often make passive-aggressive comments to Amy off camera, undermining her confidence and trying to push her out of the farm business long before she officially sold her half. They claimed that Karen Chandler, even when she was just a farm manager, was often present during sensitive family discussions, a fact that deeply uncomfortable Amy and the children, but was often edited out to make Matt appear more sympathetic. This kind of witness testimony paints a picture of a calculated, long-term campaign by Matt to gain sole control of the farm, with the goal of eventually cashing in, regardless of the emotional cost to his family. These fan testimonies are crucial because they fill in the gaps left by the show's heavily edited narrative. Viewers testify about Amy's emotional labor, recounting countless scenes where she was the one organizing family events, managing the chaos of pumpkin season, and raising 4 children, often with little help from Matt, who was frequently absorbed in his latest project. They bring up Matt's history of starting projects and then losing interest, leaving Amy to clean up the mess. This collective memory serves as a powerful character witness testimony for Amy, reinforcing the public's belief that she was the true heart of the farm and that her financial and emotional investment was just as significant, if not more so, than Matt's. The witness stand of the internet has given a voice to the silent majority, and their combined testimony is a powerful indictment of the man who once called himself the king of Roloff Farms. With the witnesses having given their testimony, it's time to present the hard evidence. In this public trial, the evidence isn't found in dusty legal files or locked evidence rooms. It's archived and readily available, hiding in plain sight in the form of screenshots and clips from old episodes of Little People, Big World. These digital artifacts have become Exhibit A in the case against Matt Roloff, serving as irrefutable proof of his own contradictions and broken promises. Fan detectives have been combing through years of footage, meticulously documenting every instance where Matt's current claims are directly contradicted by his past statements. The results are staggering and paint a damning picture of a man whose story changes to suit his current desires. One of the most frequently cited pieces of evidence is a collection of screenshots and video clips where Matt explicitly discusses the farm as a legacy for his children. In one particularly poignant scene from an earlier season, Matt is seen walking the property with a young Zach and Jeremy. He gestures expansively and says something to the effect of, "One day, all of this will be yours to share. You guys will take over and keep the Roloff name going here." This single clip, which has been shared thousands of times across social media, is a smoking gun. It's not a vague promise. It's a direct statement of intent made to his children on national television. When you place this evidence alongside his recent blog posts and social media comments where he claims the children were never truly interested or that they couldn't handle the responsibility, the contradiction is jarring. It makes his current narrative seem like revisionist history, a desperate attempt to rewrite the past to justify his present actions. The evidence goes deeper. Fans have unearthed numerous scenes where Matt belittles or dismisses Amy's financial contributions and concerns, only to later use financial arguments to justify the sale. There are screenshots of conversations where Amy expresses worry about taking on too much debt for one of Matt's projects, and he waves her off, essentially saying he'll handle it. Yet, in his defense of the sale, he has often cited the immense financial burden of the farm as a primary reason for not giving his sons a family discount. The prosecution, the public, presents this as evidence of hypocrisy. For years, he spent lavishly on his own pet projects, like the mock western town and the giant pirate ship, often over Amy's objections. Now, he's pleading poverty and financial prudence when it comes to his own son's inheritance. The juxtaposition of spendthrift dreamer Matt from the past with fiscally responsible gatekeeper Matt of the present is a contradiction that hasn't gone unnoticed. Furthermore, there is compelling visual evidence contradicting Matt's claims about his son's lack of commitment. Fans have compiled montages of clips showing both Jeremy and Zach working on the farm throughout their entire lives. There are videos of them as teenagers, mowing, building, and helping during the grueling pumpkin season. There are scenes from their young adulthood where they actively participate in farm projects and express a clear desire to be more involved. One particularly powerful piece of evidence is from the seasons when Jeremy was building his own tiny home on the property, and Zach was raising his own family there. Their actions demonstrated a deep and abiding connection to the land, a connection that Matt himself had fostered. His recent attempts to paint them as uninterested city boys who suddenly wanted a handout are directly refuted by years of video evidence. The public sees this and concludes that Matt isn't just selling a piece of land, he's selling a false narrative to the highest bidder. And perhaps the most emotionally charged evidence of all comes from the footage of the family's reaction to the initial divorce discussions. There are scenes where the children, particularly Zach, express their deep fear that the divorce would lead to the loss of the farm. They talk about it being the only home they've ever known, the center of their universe. In these scenes, Matt is often seen reassuring them, telling them that the farm will always be in the family. These promises, captured on film and now recirculating online, are the emotional core of the public's case. They are seen as sacred vows, made from a father to his children in a time of crisis. To see those vows broken now for what appears to be financial gain is the ultimate betrayal. The evidence is clear, it is voluminous, and it is all in the public domain. Every screenshot, every clip, every reshared memory serves as another nail in the coffin of Matt Roloff's credibility. Now we move to a crucial part of the prosecution's case, proof of contribution, a central pillar of Matt Roloff's defense, both stated and implied, is that Roloff Farms is his creation, his vision, and therefore his to do with as he pleases. He positions himself as the sole architect of this empire. But the jury of fans, with their long memories and access to hundreds of hours of footage, is presenting a powerful rebuttal. They are submitting into evidence a mountain of clips and testimonials that prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Amy Roloff was not just a resident of the farm, but a co-creator, an essential partner whose labor and emotional investment were absolutely critical to its success. This evidence systematically dismantles the myth of Matt as the lone genius and reestablishes Amy as the indispensable heart and soul of the operation for decades. The most compelling proof comes from the countless hours of footage dedicated to the farm's main revenue source, pumpkin season. While Matt was often the face of the event, the ringmaster who enjoyed greeting the crowds, fan-edited compilations clearly show that Amy was the operational manager, the logistical backbone that made the entire thing possible. There are endless clips of Amy in the office, buried in paperwork, managing schedules, hiring and training staff, and handling the finances. She was the one dealing with the nitty-gritty, unglamorous work that is essential for any business to run. Viewers are sharing scenes where Amy is single-handedly coordinating a field trip for hundreds of school children, while Matt is off starting a new, unrelated building project. They point to episodes where a stressed-out Amy is trying to balance the books, while Matt is impulsively buying another piece of expensive, non-essential equipment. This evidence becomes even more damning when fans highlight the numerous times Matt was physically absent during critical periods. There are entire episodes, particularly in the later seasons, where Matt travels to visit friends, to attend Little People of America conferences, or simply to take vacations with Karen. And what happens back at the farm? Amy, with the help of the kids, keeps the business running. There are clips that show Amy managing pumpkin season almost entirely on her own, dealing with equipment breakdowns, staff shortages, and customer complaints, all while Matt is hundreds of miles away. The prosecution argues that this isn't just a case of a supportive spouse. This is a business partner holding down the fort. Her contribution wasn't just helping out, it was fundamental to the farm's profitability and survival. For Matt to now act as if the farm's value is solely a product of his own efforts is, in the eyes of the public, a gross and insulting erasure of Amy's history and hard work. Beyond the business side, there's the proof of her emotional and domestic contribution, which is inextricably linked to the farm's identity. The farm wasn't just a business, it was a home. And the evidence overwhelmingly shows that Amy was the one who made it so. Clips abound of Amy cooking huge meals for the family, hosting holiday gatherings, and maintaining the household, all while also raising 4 children. The big house, as it came to be known, was her domain. It was the backdrop for every major family milestone, from birthdays to graduations to weddings. The public sees this and understands that her contribution cannot be measured in dollars and cents alone. She invested her entire adult life, her sweat, and her tears into that property. She created the family part of the family farm. When Matt bought her out for what now seems like a fraction of the property's market value, fans don't just see a business transaction. They see a man callously cashing in on the lifetime of emotional equity his ex-wife had built. In exclusive theory, gaining momentum in the fan community suggests that Matt's desire to erase Amy's contributions is a key part of his strategy. By minimizing her role, he can more easily justify his claim of sole ownership and his right to sell. This theory is supported by subtle clues from the show. For example, in later seasons after the divorce, Matt often referred to projects as my projects and the farm as my farm, a linguistic shift that fans picked up on immediately. This reframing, they argue, was a deliberate attempt to slowly push Amy out of the farm's history in the minds of the viewers. But the fans remember. They have the receipts in the form of archived episodes. They remember Amy up at dawn to get the kids ready for school before heading out to work on the farm. They remember her mediating disputes between Matt and the children. They remember her keeping the family together through countless crises. This proof of contribution is a cornerstone of the public's case. It establishes Amy not as a bystander, but as a founder, making Matt's subsequent actions seem not just like a bad business decision, but a profound act of historical revisionism and personal injustice. After reviewing the witness testimonies and examining all the evidence, we arrive at the ruling. In the vast, decentralized courtroom of social media, there is no single judge in a black robe to deliver a final, binding decision. Instead, the verdict comes in the form of a million different posts, comments, and shares, an overwhelming and unified wave of public sentiment that constitutes a public verdict. And that verdict is in. The court of public opinion has found Matt Roloff guilty on multiple counts. The ruling is that he has betrayed the core principles he claimed to champion for over a decade: family, legacy, and loyalty. This isn't a legal ruling, but in the world of a public figure whose livelihood depends on public perception, it may be even more powerful. The primary ruling is one of profound hypocrisy. The public, acting as the jury, has listened to Matt's decades of speeches about the Roloff farm being a generational legacy, a place for his children and grandchildren to grow up. They have contrasted this with his actions, setting a price that was unattainable for his sons, and then quickly putting a portion of that legacy on the open market for strangers. The verdict is that his words were hollow, a branding strategy rather than a heartfelt promise. Fans have ruled that his talk of legacy was only convenient as long as it served his narrative and his wallet. The moment that legacy required a personal financial sacrifice, selling to his sons at a discounted family price, the principle was abandoned. The ruling is that his true legacy, as demonstrated by his actions, is not family but profit. Furthermore, the public has passed a ruling on the charge of gaslighting his own family and the audience. They have watched him attempt to rewrite history, claiming his sons were not serious about the farm or that they lacked the will to take it on. The jury, armed with video evidence of Zach and Jeremy's lifelong involvement and expressed interests, has ruled this to be a false narrative. They see it as a manipulative tactic to shift blame and paint himself as the victim, the long-suffering father whose ungrateful children wouldn't meet his fair offer. The ruling is that Matt, not the sons, is the one who changed the terms of the deal. The public has judged his attempts to portray himself as the reasonable party in this dispute as a deliberate and dishonest manipulation of the facts. There is also a significant ruling regarding the role of Corinne Chandler. While she is not the primary defendant, the public has judged her to be an accomplice. The perception among the vast majority of the fan base is that Karen's influence has been a driving factor in Matt's decisions. The jury points to the timing of the sale, which seemed to accelerate after Matt and Corinne began planning their future life together, a life that included a new dream home built on the property. The ruling, based on circumstantial evidence and viewer intuition, is that Corinne's desire for a new, Amy-free life on the farm, combined with her own financial interests, played a crucial role in convincing Matt to cash out rather than pass the farm down. Many of the verdicts written in comment sections explicitly state that this all started when Corinne came into the picture, showing that in the public's mind, her complicity is a settled matter. Finally, the court of public opinion has delivered its sentence. The sentence is not jail time or a financial penalty, but something Matt may fear more: the loss of his public adoration and the tarnishing of his carefully crafted image. The sentence is the rewriting of his public identity from a beloved family patriarch to a cautionary tale of greed. He is no longer seen as the whimsical dreamer, but as a ruthless businessman who chose a financial windfall over his family's happiness and history. This public verdict is being enforced every day in every comment section, on every fan page. It's a permanent stain on his reputation. The ruling is that the magic of Roloff Farms, the very thing he worked so hard to build and sell to the public, was an illusion. And the man who pulled the levers behind the curtain has finally been exposed. The jury has spoken, the verdict is in, and for Matt Roloff, there appears to be no possibility of a successful appeal. Part 2, the conspiracy and the fallout. In the first part of our deep dive, we established the courtroom of public opinion, heard the witness testimonies from the depths of the internet, examined the hard evidence from past episodes, and delivered the public's resounding guilty verdict against Matt Roloff. But now, we must connect the dots and ask a more disturbing question. Was this all part of a larger plan? Were we, the audience, being deliberately manipulated from the very beginning? This is where we move beyond the family drama and into the realm of the puppet masters themselves, the network, TLC. An explosive theory pieced together from fan observations and alleged whispers from behind the scenes suggests that TLC and its producers are not just passive documentarians. Instead, they are active participants, using clever and often deceptive editing tricks to craft a specific narrative, heighten the drama, and intentionally push one side of the story to maximize ratings, even at the cost of the family's well-being. Let's start with the concept of the producer's cut. What we see on television is not reality. It is a story constructed from hundreds of hours of raw footage. Editors and producers have the power to create heroes and villains, to highlight certain comments while burying others, and to shape our entire perception of an event. A fascinating theory gaining traction alleges that for years, TLC actively protected Matt Roloff's image. Why? Because the dreamer dad building a magical farm was the central marketable premise of the show. He was the golden goose. An insider report from a source claiming to be a former low-level production assistant alleged that in the early seasons, many of Matt's more abrasive or dismissive comments towards Amy were intentionally left on the cutting room floor. The source claimed that scenes of Amy struggling to manage the household and the farm's finances alone were often shortened or edited to make her seem like she was nagging rather than legitimately overwhelmed. The goal, according to this theory, was to maintain the delicate balance of the Matt the dreamer, Amy the practical one dynamic, without ever letting Matt's ambition cross the line into outright neglect or selfishness in the final edit. This created a foundation of goodwill for Matt with the audience, a foundation he is now drawing upon and which TLC is now gleefully dismantling for dramatic effect. The editing tricks allegedly became more pronounced during and after the divorce. Notice the structure of the show's conversations. Have you ever felt like a conversation seems disjointed, with one person's reaction not quite matching what the other person just said? Fans point to a technique known as frankenbiting, where editors take individual words or short phrases from different sentences and stitch them together to create a new sentence that the person never actually said. While we can't prove this without seeing the raw footage, viewers have identified numerous scenes, particularly in arguments between Matt and Amy, where the dialogue feels unnatural. The theory is that TLC was using these techniques to create more conflict. They could take a mild disagreement and, through clever editing, turn it into a full-blown argument, thus manufacturing the drama needed to keep the show on the air. This manipulation reached its peak, according to these exclusive theories, with the farm sale storyline. The narrative presented to us was one of a father making a tough business decision. But what if TLC was selectively editing to make the sons, particularly Zach, seem more unreasonable? Think about the conversations we saw. We saw Zach get angry. We saw him express his disappointment. But did we see the full context? An insider report alleges that the initial negotiations were far more complex than what was shown. This source claims there were multiple offers and counter-offers, and that Matt's initial offer was so low it was insulting, but that this was edited out. Then his official offer was the wildly inflated one. By only showing the final high offer and Zach's angry reaction, the edit could subtly suggest that Zach was being hot-headed and entitled, expecting a handout. The producers could craft a both sides have a point narrative, which is far more compelling television than a simple story of a father being greedy. They were not reporting the news. They were writing a script using the family's real-life pain as their ink. Connecting more dots leads us to the role of Karen Chandler. For a long time, the show presented her as a neutral, helpful farm manager. But many fans believe TLC deliberately downplayed her role in the family's personal dynamics for years. They kept her relationship with Matt ambiguous long after it was obvious to everyone what was happening. Why? To protect the show's family image. However, once the divorce was finalized and the farm sale became the central conflict, Corinne was suddenly given a much larger role, with her opinions and influence on Matt being heavily featured. This wasn't an accident. The producers likely recognized that introducing a new woman as a potential catalyst for the family's breakdown was a classic soap opera trope that would ignite the fan base and send ratings soaring. They shifted her from a background character to a main player, framing her as the Yoko Ono of the Roloff family. TLC wasn't just following the story, they were shaping it, casting characters in roles they knew would generate the most controversy and therefore the most engagement. The family wasn't just falling apart, they were being produced to fall apart in the most dramatic way possible. This theory reframes the entire saga. We, the jury, may have found Matt guilty, but perhaps the true culprit is a network that profits from a family's destruction, fanning the flames and editing the evidence to ensure the fire burns as brightly as possible. The web of deceit, as woven by these exclusive theories, suggests a level of manipulation that is truly breathtaking. It forces us to re-examine every scene, every conversation we've ever watched. Was that tearful confession genuine, or was it the result of a producer prodding the person off camera for hours to get an emotional reaction? Was that heated argument a spontaneous event, or was it carefully constructed in the editing bay from out-of-context clips? This theory of systematic manipulation by TLC adds a tragic layer to the Roloff family story. It implies that not only are they dealing with their own internal strife, but they are also puppets in a much larger game, their deepest pains and resentments packaged and sold for public consumption. Let's consider the narrative arc of Amy Roloff. For many seasons, especially during the divorce, she was often edited to appear indecisive, bitter, and unwilling to move on. The show lingered on her attachment to the big house, sometimes framing it as an obstacle to everyone else's happiness. According to the disgruntled crew member theory, this was a deliberate choice. By making Amy seem difficult, it made Matt's desire to move forward seem more reasonable and sympathetic. It created a false equivalency in their conflict. However, once Amy sold her portion of the farm and found happiness with Chris Merrick, her utility as a dramatic foil to Matt diminished. Suddenly, the narrative needed a new source of conflict, and just in time, the farm sale controversy with the sons emerged. It was at this point, the theory suggests, that the editorial focus shifted. The producers, no longer needing to protect Matt as the sympathetic protagonist, were free to lean into his more villainous traits because the new conflict, father versus sons, was far more explosive and ratings friendly. It's a cynical but plausible explanation for the sudden shift in how Matt has been portrayed in the most recent seasons. His hero edit had expired. This connects directly to the way information was presented. Think about the financial details of the farm sale. They have always been kept deliberately vague on the show. We hear phrases like a fair price or market value, but the actual numbers are rarely discussed. This ambiguity is a producer's best friend. It allows the audience to fill in the blanks with their own assumptions, fueling endless speculation online. If the show had presented a clear, transparent breakdown of the farm's appraisal, the proposed sale price, and the son's counteroffers, much of the debate would be settled. But that would be boring. It's far more compelling to present an emotional drama of he said, they said. By withholding key facts, TLC ensures the controversy remains a matter of public debate rather than a straightforward business dispute. They aren't interested in resolution, they are invested in perpetual conflict. We must also connect the dots on a more meta level. The show itself, Little People, Big World, has become self-referential. The characters now openly discuss what was said on the show or how they were portrayed in the last season. This creates a bizarre feedback loop. The family has a real-life conflict, TLC edits it into a dramatic narrative, the family and the public react to the edited version, and that reaction becomes the storyline for the next season. It's a snake eating its own tail. Matt's lengthy social media posts defending his actions are a direct response to the public's reaction to the show's portrayal of him. Zach's scathing comments on Instagram calling his father a manipulator are a direct reaction to Matt's posts. TLC then films these reactions, edits them for maximum impact, and the cycle begins anew. The family is trapped in a narrative machine of TLC's creation, and every attempt they make to break free and tell their own story only provides more content for the machine to consume. The ultimate and most tragic dot to connect is the human cost of this all. We, the viewers, are the end users of this product. The family's pain is the raw material. By using these editing tricks, by pushing a certain narrative, the network isn't just making a TV show. They are actively exacerbating a real family's trauma. They are creating a public spectacle that pits father against son, brother against brother, and ex-husband against ex-wife. The divisions within the Roloff family may have existed anyway, but it's hard to argue that the constant glare of the cameras, combined with a manipulative edit, has not made things exponentially worse. The family is no longer just fighting with each other. They are fighting against the public versions of themselves that TLC has created, and that is a war they can never truly win. The dots connect to form a grim picture. A family caught in the gears of a reality TV empire, their relationship shredded to create compelling content for a global audience, with producers pulling the strings all along, ensuring the drama never ever ends. And so, we are left with the fallout, the wreckage of a family torn asunder, broadcast for all to see. The public verdict is in. The alleged manipulation by the network has been exposed, but the story is far from over. This leads us to the final, tantalizing question, the cliffhanger that keeps the entire audience on the edge of their seats. Could the immense, unrelenting pressure from the fans actually force Matt Roloff to finally confess? In the modern age, the power of a unified public outcry cannot be underestimated. We've seen it topple corporate giants, end political careers, and force celebrities into hiding. Could that same power be brought to bear on the patriarch of Roloff Farms, forcing him to admit what millions of people already believe to be true? Let's explore the possibility. Matt Roloff, for all his talk of being a rugged individualist who doesn't care what others think, has built his entire fortune on public perception. The success of Pumpkin Season, the viewership of the show, his book sales, his social media influence, it all hinges on his likability. Right now, that likability is in a nosedive. His social media is a war zone. Every post he makes, whether it's about his new house, a trip with Karen, or a farm project, is met with a tidal wave of criticism about the farm sale. He is being haunted by his own legacy. This constant daily barrage of negativity has to be taking a toll, not just emotionally, but potentially financially. If the public turns on him so completely that they stop coming to Pumpkin Season, if they boycott the show and his other ventures, he will be hit where it hurts the most, his bottom line. A confession in this context might not come from a place of genuine remorse, but from a calculated business decision. A public relations expert might advise him that the only way to salvage his brand is to show some humility. Imagine a carefully staged scene in a future episode of the show. The lighting is soft. Matt sits in his living room, looking directly into the camera. He gets emotional. He might say something like, "Looking back, I handled things all wrong. I let my business sense get in the way of being a father. I was trying to be fair, but I wasn't being compassionate. I hurt my sons, and for that, I am truly sorry." It would be a dramatic, powerful moment of television. It would be hailed by some as a breakthrough, a moment of accountability. It could be the first step in repairing his public image, and just as importantly for the network, would guarantee a ratings bonanza for the season premiere. But what would a confession actually entail? Would he admit that the price was intentionally inflated? This is highly unlikely, as it would open him up to accusations of outright deception. Would he confess that Corinne's influence played a bigger role than he let on? To do so would be to throw his partner under the bus, a move that seems improbable. The most likely form of confession would be a vague, emotional apology for the pain caused without admitting to any specific wrongdoing. He would confess to a failure of communication, not a failure of character. He would frame it as a tragic misunderstanding, a situation where everyone had the best intentions, but things just went wrong. This type of non-apology apology is a staple of public figures in crisis. It's designed to placate the public without admitting guilt, allowing him to reclaim the narrative and cast himself as a flawed but ultimately well-meaning father who has learned a valuable lesson. However, there is another more cynical possibility. The fan pressure might not force a confession at all. Instead, it might cause him to double down. Matt has always had a stubborn, defiant streak. It's part of the personality that allowed him to overcome so many obstacles in his life. He may view this public backlash as an unfair attack, a woke mob coming after him without knowing all the facts. His response might be to retreat further, to block his critics, and to surround himself only with people who support his version of events. He could use the fan hate as the storyline for the next season, painting himself as the victim of a vicious online smear campaign. In this scenario, the fan pressure doesn't lead to a confession. It leads to an escalation. The family divisions would become even more entrenched, the public battle lines drawn even more clearly. This too would make for compelling television, a drama of a man against the world, defiant to the very end. This is the ultimate cliffhanger. We, the public jury, have delivered our verdict. The evidence of his hypocrisy and TLC's manipulation seems overwhelming. The pressure is mounting with every single comment and every critical YouTube video. Will this digital siege break through his defenses and force a moment of truth, however calculated it may be? Or will it simply harden his resolve, pushing the Roloff family further towards a point of no return? The answer lies in the mind of one man. But the question itself, the possibility of a final, dramatic confession, is the hook that will keep us all watching, waiting, and judging. The court may be adjourned for now, but the appeal is pending, and the final chapter in the trial of Matt Roloff has yet to be written. The cameras are still rolling, the fans are still talking, and the world is waiting to see if the man who built a fantasy world for the public will finally be forced to face reality.